We are activating your unique self-discovery one show at a time. The Orchard of Wisdom Self-Discovery podcast at your fingertips, just waiting to inspire and invite you in discovering just how awesome you really are and how to navigate through life in joy, enrichment, personal abundance, in mind, body, spirit, heart, and soul. All the people we bring you are here to serve you on your journey of life. Do enjoy our next show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Dr. Marni Hill Foderaro. We could be talking about her books, but one book title that I really has got me is that God came to my garage sale. Well, I'd love to know what he bought. We're going to be diving into all of her other books as well, because I've got 6 book covers here right now. So there's clearly a lot of books to talk about. But it's really about positivity, our own self-discovery, deciding how we're going to live our lives. You know, there isn't anybody on this planet that hasn't gone through stuff, that we haven't had to face up. We all do. And she's had her own journey there as well. So we're going to discover what it is that turned her down into the path to choose the positive way of thinking and just kind of in a lot of ways lighten up and enjoy life instead of taking it so seriously. We can be serious, folks, but we just don't have to get bogged down in everything else that's going on out there. Welcome to the show, hun.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah.
I've got to go for this title. God came to my garage sale. What did he buy? I want to know.
Well, you know, it's hard to say. It could have been a number of items. It could have been a number of people that presented themselves in a divine manner. It could have even been myself. So at this garage sale, which I had to have, which was at a turning point in my life, I was choosing to leave my American dream. You know, I made a choice to leave a very unhealthy marriage. And I knew that I had to downsize, and that was part of it all. And so I had this garage sale, but instead of being negative or angry or resentful, I was just the way I've always been, which is happy and positive and very grateful for so many things. And so I was in a deep state of gratitude. And I was looking back at my home around the garage sale time, and some miracles presented themselves to me, so many that it prompted me to really look into spiritual transformative experiences. And I was so compelled by my experiences, I needed to write this down.
Good.
And so I chose to write the book, God Came to My Garage Sale.
I love it. I love people when they get a redirect, because we never know where it's coming from. Just by the way, a disclaimer, folks, I do have a cold and bronchitis today, so you're not hearing my normal voice. So forgive me if you hear me spluttering through the show. That redirect in life, it could be a tap on the shoulder. It could be a cosmic 2x4. But, you know, that change is inevitable. And the path that we have selected for ourselves at a certain stage in life, and we think it's going to be forever, we don't know what is forever, right? We can work on things. We can make sure that we dig out the weeds and keep the garden all fruitful. But if it's had its time, it's had its time, and the respect is to move on. That transition could be extremely hard. But if you get a lovely divine tap on the shoulder along the way of, oh, by the way, this road, go through this gate, you know, was it that for you?
You know, it was because, you know, I knew leaving my abuser, and it turned out I didn't realize I was in a domestic abuse situation. Just like many people, we go along, we ignore red flags. We just keep on thinking things will get better. We know that we're very good people. And so we kind of assume the people around us also have those same values when they don't always. But, you know, yes, I had to make a choice, and I knew there would be repercussions. I had no idea the severity of the repercussions, but my own foundation of love and goodness and compassion, forgiveness, that served me well during this pivot in my life, this transition. So I chose to handle this challenge and the continuing challenges that I still face just with love and goodness. And I believe that I was shown some miracles that really contributed to opening my eyes to a bigger picture going on here. And never would I have imagined that I would leave the Chicago, Illinois, USA suburbs for a life in the Caribbean, where I
Wow.
have been for the last 3 years, and just really living out a very passionate and fulfilling life. Sure, I do have some losses, and they're significant, but I still believe in goodness and love, and that we're meant to experience these things on our journey.
We are, most certainly. Well, we can't get through life without loss. And, loss is, I look at it's an end of a chapter, end of an era. It's an end of what? And if it's somebody in our life that is, quote, gone home, that we have to remember the light in which they shone bright when they were with us. And that light is always within you every time you have a thought over them. Do we miss actually speaking and holding them? Yes. But that essence of who they are is always around you. Loss of a career. Well, very often I look at it as it's a redirection. That career had its day. It's time to move on. Of a husband, it's that chapter is finished. And if we could look at concentrating on it's the end of that chapter and there's a new chapter to have, instead of I've got a loss and I'm going to mourn the loss and make it a drama or a trauma, then we get stuck in a totally different paradigm, don't we?
Yes, but it's important to acknowledge your losses.
Oh God,
and
yes,
to
yes.
and to understand. In my particular case, I didn't realize that my domestic violence situation involved parental alienation, which is a loss of living children. And in my case, they were adult children. You would think that they would know better, but that prompted me on a whole new direction to really understand people that are personality disordered and malevolent. And I just kind of was living life believing everyone was good. So it really was important turning point for me. The loss of my adult children, though, is just devastating, as it would be for any father or any mother who had a normal range, very happy relationship with their kids before the divorce or separation. But I also look at it like they have a journey too.
Yes.
And it's all kind of related, and then you need to do some of your own inner work, looking back at your own life and what made you a target for someone like this, and what are some behaviors such as overgiving or just accepting of bad behavior that at some point you need to say, wait a minute, I'm going to put up a boundary here and start taking care of myself.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. Boundary. We're not talking borders. We're talking boundaries. It's a particular frequency that you work on, and you're not going to accept anything lower than that. Right. And that is, it's self-preservation, but it's self-love, it's self-respect. And it shows people how they can treat you. And as you said, when you're a loving, giving person, you give, you forgive. You make excuses for that person. There's goodness inside of them. Why can't you bring it out? It comes out for a second, you go, it's there, and then it goes back in again. And then you think you've done something wrong. Right.
Right. And actually, there's a lot of that intermittent reinforcement that goes on, where you're given a glimmer of hope that things are positive, you're treated well for a time, but then the negativity is also interwoven there. So that's why people can go on for years and years and decades. I didn't file for divorce until 27 years after. And people will say, well, why didn't you leave earlier when you saw this, you knew of this, these behaviors? Well, love is blind. And, you go into things like we talked about earlier about wanting forever, you make a commitment and you think that this is, for a lifetime, but it's not necessarily. And people do kind of weave in and out of our lives, for a reason, sometimes for a season, and sometimes for a lifetime. And I think when we have the courage to look at the big picture and take some time to really reflect and analyze, we can let go of some toxic people or situations in our lives. And that actually makes room in our hearts for new experiences and new people to come into our lives that we resonate more with.
That same frequency as you, on the same wavelength, right? Because when you step into that higher love vibration, you really can't knowingly do any harm to anyone else, because it harms you. It is that kindness, that consideration, that love and respect is a vibration that is so encompassing, and that's what you want for other people. For people who are still in that zone of their own pain and then inflicting it and blaming it on other people, at some point in our lives, however much we try to save people, and believe me, I've been down that road, they have got to be willing to, quote, save themselves. And if they're not going to take any accountability, then how are they ever going to heal?
Right.
And it's not for us to do it for them.
Right. I was just going to say that is not our job.
No.
Our job is not to fix people or to change them. You'd like to think that you can influence good behavior, honesty, but not everyone is honest, and not everyone operates that way. And so, we need to look back and take care of ourselves. And even now, even though I don't have my adult children in my life, and I'm going on a decade, and it's unfathomable. It's
right.
just, it's very shocking. But at the same time, I believe that I am role modeling good behavior as a parent, as like I've always done, and to show my children that you can handle challenges in your life, but you can do it gracefully with love, honesty, and goodness. And eventually the truth does come out with situations, and eventually people expose themselves. You don't have to expose other people for what they have done. It actually happens by their own accord. And unfortunately, the kids, even adult kids, get caught in the crossfire, but that is part of their journey. And I believe in my heart of hearts that the truth will prevail, and that goodness just overrules the negative.
And the thing is, it's, as you said, it's their journey. And when they come to that realization, I now understand. I understand that she placed value upon herself, that she wasn't going to take this anymore. It becomes an inspiration that begets an invitation in their own life, right? Perhaps I can do it for myself.
Right. And actually, if I would have stayed in that abusive relationship, which the kids actually were witness to numerous things, I would be role modeling another thing, which I don't think is very positive. I would be role modeling, hey, it doesn't matter what life throws at you or how people treat you. You just stick it out no matter what. And that's really not a very positive message. And so actually role modeling works both ways. So my making the choice to leave that situation is role modeling that, people have value and worth, and we deserve to be in honest relationships.
And for your children at their own point in life, they're going to have to realize to lay blame or shame at your feet for leaving, right? Is that's their onus, not you. You had to do what you had to do for your own survival. And at some point, they've got to realize that doesn't mean that you didn't love them any less.
Oh, no, not at all. They know how much I love them. I even through everything that they've been through, what is really hard with parental alienation is that they've been fed a false narrative. So even though they are adults, and like I said, they should know better, they have been told outright lies and actually believable half-truths in a smear campaign that just, it goes not only to the children, but to family, friends, neighbors, and unfortunately, it's going to take some time for them to unpack that false narrative.
But unfortunately, too, you do have people that would prefer to stay in the false narrative.
Yeah, sure.
They like that because it's easier to blame than take any accountability themselves. For your own children, for them to recognize that you are not to blame, that this really did happen, that you were validated in leaving. It becomes then a little bit of a thing for them of, oh my God, I've allowed this to go on for so long. How can I show my face now?
Right.
So
Right.
this
And
can
the
be hard.
guilt
Yeah.
guilt these children must feel has
Yeah.
got to be, once they figure out, it's got to be tremendous. Because really at some point after targeted parents have reached out in almost any way that they can. And my book series, True Deceit, False Love, is to bring awareness to some of these things. It's not a personal story of mine, but it is something that people,
Reflective.
right, very much can understand. And there's even a survivor's workbook for people to work through their emotions. And so anyway, I just think it's very important to bring awareness. But at some point, after a targeted parent has reached out in almost every way they can, and even have been legally stopped from communicating with their
Wow.
children, which happens to a lot of dads and moms, because the vindictive, abusive, alienating parent will go to any lengths to make up false stories or whatever to keep driving that narrative that they have. At some point, it's up to the children.
Yeah.
That they as adults need to take that first step, even though it isn't the first step.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of responsibility is on their shoulders, and that is a very hard place to be, because they live in fear. They've witnessed the abuse, and they don't want to be targets of that abuse themselves.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's a lot of conflictingness there. But you talk about false narratives, whether it's within the family and how family can turn on each other. We as a human society find it easier to buy false narrative, fake news, sensationalism. We've got into this thing of sensationalism, looking bad. I mean, watching this court case between, the actor and his wife. It should never have been broadcasted. It should have been a private thing. And we look at this and it's a train wreck, and people are glued to the train wreck. And it's like, why are we glued to other people's misery? Why are we buying these false narratives instead of investigating what is really the truth? Why are
There's
we,
a lot of propaganda out there.
Oh my God,
there's
so
a lot
much.
of propaganda. And so it's very, very hard to come to the truth. It seems, though, at least with our world situation, that the truth is slowly coming to light about all sorts
How
of
can
things.
you hide it with so much? I mean, yes, a video can be doctored. It used to be a picture, say 1,000 words. Well, the picture can be doctored, but it comes into this, I think, as people, don't just buy the first thing that's thrown in your face. Question. Question. We've been dumbed down a great deal to buy all that negativity. And why? Fear sells.
Right. And fear,
and it keeps people in control.
Yes, fear is just unbelievable. Fear drives all sorts of things. And fear is what perpetrators really count on. They count on you being fearful, so that they can control situations. But, like we said, truth eventually comes out, and goodness, I believe, does eventually prevail. It's just so important that people should critically think on their own.
Please.
Right. And that goes true for children who are caught in alienation. They need to critically think about their own experiences that they lived through, and give themselves credit for their own belief. I mean, where an abuser will try to change the narrative and will try to say, well, you didn't see that. There'll be a lot of gaslighting going on. So you didn't see that. You didn't hear that. Your interpretation was wrong, that type of thing. I think people need to get back to themselves and do their own critical thinking about personal situations and global situations.
Well, in the personal situation, especially like your children, they're obviously still being victimized and are traumatized by their father. So in their case, until they've had enough and willing to escape that and take back their own lives, they're not going to understand why you left or what's going on, because they're still caught in that web. But there again comes down to everybody's journey in life. How long do you choose to stay in a web of deceit, of trauma, of pain? And when do you find the strength and the courage to stand up and say, I'm not going to take it anymore?
Right. And unfortunately, it happens to be that it takes so long for the realization. Like I'm 60 years old now, and I finally put the pieces of my own family intergenerational trauma situation together. And abusers will keep up their narrative till the day they die. They will not change course. They will not admit to things that they have done, even when it's very, very clear that you are being gaslit or you are being fed a false narrative. When you put the pieces together, it's unfortunately takes a long time, and there may not be resolution in this lifetime. And that's a hard pill to swallow, that there may not be resolution. And for us to know, but at some point, I believe, at least in writing the books that I have and being able to have these open, candid conversations, that I'm at least leaving a legacy of awareness and challenging people to look for the truth and to let others know that, you can't control what other people do. You can only control yourself and how you respond. And I choose to respond with love, compassion, goodness. But there is the self-discovery aspect where you really have to do the inner work as well as the research on different things to do the critical thinking to realize what you're dealing with.
We have told ourselves a pack of lies all our lives, right? Because we've been told that we have to live up to this expectation, and you're only of value if you're this, and you only count if you're that. And to unpack that lie straight away, that you're not enough unless, and finding our self-worth. I think one of the hardest things for people is A, to forgive themselves, and B, to find that journey of self-love. We can love and forgive others before we do it of ourselves. But why is that so hard? Why are we carrying so much burden and conditioning and expectation that was so unrealistic in the first place?
Well, I think other people place those expectations on you. And even at a young age, like children can be groomed to go into a certain position in a career, or you need to follow this route. Or you shouldn't participate in that activity. You need to do this activity. And not only do you need to do it, you need to be the best, the top, the number one. So there's a lot of pressure starting even at early ages on children to be conditioned. And then if you add your own pressures to that, where you think you need to follow a certain path to be successful, that's very challenging for people. When I originally got my doctorate degree in 1997, and I was a high school special education teacher for 35 years, loving my career, but I wanted to be able to work with people at the graduate school level, because I saw so many school administrators and other people in leadership positions think that they are so much above other people. And so I went on to get a doctorate degree, really in many ways. Well, first of all, I just love learning. So I really enjoyed my studies. And even after earning my doctorate degree in 1997, in 2014, I believe it was, I went on to do postdoctoral work at Harvard University, because I really loved the learning. But to get back to what I was saying about my originally earning my doctorate degree and wanting to teach graduate school, I would start out my classes in the education curriculum department at Northern Illinois University. I would start out by letting the students, many of which were superintendent of schools and other professionals, principals and assistant principals, but really pointing out that they are not above other people,
Right.
that there are people that may not have gone the route that they did with their formal education, but they could be just as intelligent, if not more. They could be just as productive and successful, if not more. And that we all need to realize, even while we're in these positions of, higher authority, that we are all humans, we are all people, and it's very important to develop respect for people, no matter what the choices are they made in their life with regards to their schooling and that type of thing. And that was very well received, because and I did see a noticeable change with some people in the course of the class, because some people would come into the position, into the course, just thinking their position was the end all be all, that they were so superior. And little by little, I think that through our discussions in the classroom, we were able to get people to be on a more equal playing field, and to realize that everyone has worth and we need to
Yes.
respect others.
Oh gosh, do we? It is not the packaging, the shiny glitter and anything else that we are. It's, for me, I really don't care what packaging you come in. It is, for me, your heart and soul.
Yes,
Is your heart in it? Is your soul ignited? Do you care? And if you have made it rich, are you paying it forward? And that true enrichment and abundance doesn't have anything to do with the dollar.
Right. Most definitely. Yeah.
Or even education. I mean, there are people that are what I call spiritually educated, the knowingness, where that the channeling of the knowledge that they need to know, that resonates with the heart, that goes to the spirit interaction, and the mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And they don't know why they know, they just know, they trust those beautiful instincts. And then you have the academic knowledge, but the academic can be pretty empty if it's not got the intuitive knowledge with it, because the wisdom shows you how to use the knowledge properly and in what way.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it.
We love to compartmentalize people. Well, this person belongs here and this person belongs here. And if we could gain to see each other from the inside out, see the very core of us, the heart and soul of us, we would actually, as a human society, be so much more enriched. I've been doing this 10 years now, and it is, every time you watch the news and you see somebody else hurting someone else, and it's escalated, and you see all the ridiculous laws that are happening, that are going backwards 50 years. And you go, can we carry on like this as a human society? And then I do these shows of all the people that are working what I call, not underground, but on a different level. And that how stepping into that more loving, caring vibration on that different frequency literally helps things grow more abundantly. And that I think the tilt is happening. And the reason why we're seeing so much of this angst going on is they know the world is coming to an end as they know it. And that the world of love, caring, and consideration in business, in life, in the way you present yourself, in every aspect of who you are, is the way we're going. And it's beautiful to see.
Right. It's almost like a spiritual war.
It is. It is.
Between evil and goodness. And it's interesting to see it unfold. And I loved when you mentioned compartmentalizing, how we compartmentalize people and situations. But I've also taken compartmentalized to a different level in order to survive some of these things that I witness, or some of these things I've experienced that are negative and just shocking, along with all the wonderful good things. Like I living in the Caribbean, I'm immersed in God's beauty and the nature of it's just fantastic. And I've been given these opportunities to experience these things, but I do a little bit of compartmentalizing myself, because if I were to, of myself, not of others, because if I were to dwell on just the negatives that I see or that I have experienced, I don't think I would be able to fully experience the joy and beauty that is there. So I think finding a balance with that is very important, and just critically thinking and staying in the light, staying positive, and grounded in the knowledge that, there are so many good people in our world, and we need to be a little bit more discerning about who we let into our own little circle. But that doesn't mean we need to give up on humanity at all, because there's so much good. And just even your podcast and what you do, you've been doing this a long time, and it's been making a positive impact on so many people. And I also think that, boy, if even one person comes away with some new knowledge or a glimmer of hope, that alone can be inspirational, and it can have like an effect that could keep growing and growing.
Right. It's that just sometimes it's just a different perspective that somebody comes away with, being able to see it in one way. Well, if I could see it in this way, what happens if I open up that vision, open up that way? It's seeing the possibilities. As they say in our shows, we may talk about the negativity, but it's always about how we can live in the possibilities and the positivity. And, I think a lot of it is the attitude of gratitude.
Definitely.
I think if we can start being grateful for the very little things that are around us. I woke up this morning.
Yes.
Okay, I woke up with bronchitis, but I still woke up,
But you woke up. There's something to be grateful for. And I look at that also when I think about my children. Instead of, just harping on the sadness and tremendous loss that I have, that they are not in my life, I look at it like, wow, with my daughter, I had 20 beautiful years with her. And with my son, I had 30 years with him. And so I try to look at that. And actually, there's so many people that don't have that experience. And I got to experience just a joyous family motherhood situation. And I'm very grateful for that. And so,
they're the chapters of our lives, aren't they? Some people have a shorter book, some people have a longer book, but it's a question of those chapters. And even the hard chapters, they're there to teach us. It's not what's happening to you, it's what's happening for you. There's always a reason, even though the reason sometimes doesn't make sense at the time. Or why is it going on so long? How come it hasn't, resolved by now? And it's that we can only own up and see our own progression, our own growth. Everybody has their own pace, right? And you see with couples, let's do this together. I'm having a spiritual awakening, and the other person's not ready, and then they end up splitting. Whereas if one just did their journey, and the other person then, in seeing that journey, it ignited theirs. But it's you've got to do it with me. No, you'll that invitation to awaken and to see that the essence of life in a different way will come to you, maybe at a garage sale.
Right. Definitely.
You never know when it's going to happen, but that's your journey. You can't drag someone else along with you. You can inspire other people. You can be invitational, but you can't drag them. This is your journey. This is the journey you are responsible for.
Right. And luckily, many of us are able to find a partner in life, whether it's a friend or, a romantic relationship that, you can resonate with, and you are at the same level. But really, change is inevitable. And so we all grow at different rates, and that's okay. I think, underlying, we need to be respectful, loving, and honest, and those virtues will see us through.
Starting with ourselves.
Definitely.
Because it's all, we see people, but I volunteer here and I give there and I give there, and what are you giving yourself? When you are the love, when you are sharing that love, when you are that light in your own life, you can't help but exude that out onto someone else. But it's not giving it to other people to find it within yourself. So sometimes it does work that way. But giving of yourself, but don't give of yourself to be looking for the approval. right?
Right. And you put your oxygen mask on
Yes,
first.
yes. We're no good to anyone else if we're depleted.
Right.
You know, I had a different journey, but I came out of a 20-year marriage that was emotionally abusive, so a browbeater, and it was actually my children that told me to divorce. But then I had a little gap there where I didn't like where my son was going, and I just couldn't talk to him. I couldn't be a part of his world. I'm here when you're ready to come back. And a couple of years, he came back and changed directions. And it's very hard to, I don't like where they're going, and I just pray like mad that it's not down the wrong path, that it's not the
Right.
wrong thing.
Right.
But you at that point have to let go. And you just hope that you've instilled enough love in them that they will
Yeah.
find their way home, right?
Right. And as parents, the honest, good, sincere, normal range parents, we set up, we discipline, not in a negative sense, but we try to guide our children to make good decisions and to independently think. And so we've been able to have a big influence on them while they were growing up. But we have to also realize when they get older, there are other influences that come into play. I mean, there are some like very negative neighbors that came into play in our situation that, changed the course of things. And you can't control that. And our children are exposed with their own schooling and their own jobs and their own interactions to other people and other ideas that may not resonate with the values you tried to raise them with.
Right.
Right. So, it can be very shocking, for a parent to realize your child is drug addicted or your child is, participating in some real negative behavior. You can't, it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, like you said, you just have to hope and pray that the values that you did instill all those years, and the encouraging them to independently think is very important.
Right.
Don't let other people make all these decisions for you. Hopefully that will come to the surface and in enough time to help steer them in a way that's very positive.
You remind me of another show I did many, many years ago of a woman who had, she was an AA student, right up until about 15, 16, and then suddenly, kind of went down the drug road, and she ended up getting shot. And her mum thought, this is a blessing, she'll come home. And it looked like she was turning the corner, but then she became addicted to the opioids that they had her on because of the shooting. And then she ended up going back out there again, and her mum kept, trying to bring her back, and she ended up being murdered.
And what a sad story.
Very sad story. But she said she had to realize at some point to let go. She had to let go, that no matter what she did. And it reminds me of a story of my brother and I, when I was young. We had a beach house, and there were these steps that went down to the beach, and the water would come up slashing against the steps when it was high tide. And there was a rat there trying to run into the water. And we kept trying to run, steering it back up to safety. And no matter what we do, it slipped by us and go back to the water. Right. And I must have been about 9 or 10. And why can't we save this rat? And it's like, I'm 67 now, and I still think this rat. And it's like, sometimes that's their path.
Right.
That is their journey that they need to have on this life. And however much you don't like it, that is preordained, and we can't do much about it.
Right. And that is very helpful. And I really, truly believe that as well. That really, we all have our own journeys, and we all have our own life lessons, and that people can only guide and support so much. And at some point, it's got to be up to the person. Anyone that has recovered from addictions, or other negative things. They've made the decision on their own.
Yes.
And will even say it didn't matter how many people tried to steer me in the right way. Until I actually made the decision myself, did it finally happen? So
I've got
that
to say,
helps.
it does. And it's also letting people know that you're there when they're ready. But, I have a saying, you can take the horse to water, you can't make it drink.
Right.
Leave it there long enough and it's going to realize it's thirsty.
Right.
So, if you just let people know, I disapprove of your journey. I disapprove of your choices, but that's got nothing to do with the way I love you.
Right. The love is to the moon and back.
Yes.
And that nothing can take that away. And nothing should take that away. No. And yeah, so goodness and truth eventually prevails. And we all are meant to experience what we are to experience. Like I said, I had no idea that my journey would take me to a place of writing a lot of books.
Right.
I wrote this 5-book series, True Deceit, False Love. And it was such a healing journey for me, very enjoyable to write, very triggering at times. So it was painful at times, but I knew that I was making a difference, and I got validation from so many famous and endorsers, influencers, in the abuse recovery community that said, you're really on the right path. You really get it. And what you are doing is really helping not only yourself, but so many other people. And that is very, lots of times when people do go through any kind of challenging situation and they turn around and serve others, whether it's through a book or whether it's through volunteer work or whatever, that they are really kind of coming full circle, because, people that have gone through things, are the best people to give advice or give
all the time. Best teachers are those that have gone through it. Best teachers. Yeah.
Yes.
You understand. You can relate. Other people can relate. It doesn't have to be exactly the same thing, because pain is pain. Anguish is anguish, not being heard, not being seen, feeling so isolated and alone. It doesn't matter which packaging it comes in. It's how you're made to feel. And when somebody understands how you've been made to feel, and that these are the things that you did to make yourself feel how you want to feel and not be reliant on someone else, it is so utterly encouraging in other people to believe, I can do it for myself.
Sure.
I don't have to have someone else do it for me.
Right.
It's so utterly empowering.
Yeah, most definitely. And I found that, I found my survivor's voice, but I also found my author voice.
Yeah.
And I, not to say that I will be doing this forever. I'm sure I'd like to focus a little bit more on other things, other endeavors, other projects. I believe a lot in world travel. I can't wait to get back out there, just to meet people from other cultures and view other places and there's so much in humanity that we have to explore and stuff. So, but anyway, I'm thrilled that, actually without my negative experiences, I wouldn't have turned them into positives like I did with my book series.
And you had that choice. You chose to live positively. You chose. You could have wallowed in, I don't see my children, I'm being victimized. That he's still bullying me even from this distance. And you could have gone down a completely different rabbit hole. Instead, you chose your own empowerment, to be that beacon of your own empowerment, that when your children do choose to see, like mom is actually thriving now that she's not with dad. Maybe there is a question to have here, and that's up to them when they choose to see you. Again,
right.
We can't help other people see what they need to see. They have to see it when they're ready to see it. But you place that value upon yourself, and in doing so, you've written the books that now give people the skill and the tools to place their value on their own selves. And as I said, the best teachers are not the theorists, but the people that have gone through it.
Right,
because
right.
people, not only are you giving the ABCs, but it's in the words that you choose, it's in the vibe that you write it. It is the essence that people pick up, and I hear you, I feel you, you were me, or I am you, and
Sure.
it's I think that's something we need a great deal more today, is to understand it doesn't matter how rich or famous or what packaging we come in, what color or anything else, we all go through something in life. And this thing of shame or blame or feeling insignificant or feeling less than is a condition that's been imposed upon us that we can say no to, and say, whatever value or whatever worth I am, I will place it upon myself, thank you, in my
Right,
own
right.
self-discovery. And I will be what I am to myself. As I said, I never apologize. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm somebody's strong cup of black coffee, right? I'm not for everyone. And I think that's also something when we are just very true to who we are, why we are, what our meaningful purpose is, then in that honesty and that beautiful vulnerability, in that truth, we will attract the people around us of like vibe.
Right. And we don't need external
No,
validation
no,
to internally validate who
no.
we are and what we're about.
Yeah.
And that's an important lesson, is to, you know, we know our truth and we know what we are made of. And, I think one of the reasons I was such a successful high school teacher is I really wasn't teaching the content as much as I was teaching the students
Yes.
to explore learning and to find worth in who they are, and understand that everyone has different learning styles and challenges and strengths, and that's okay. And one of my biggest goals every day when I was in the classroom was trying to help these young adults feel good about themselves for who they were, and the learning of the academic stuff would come. But they need to realize their worth and, feel good and comfortable in their own skin.
And not to compare.
No.
If that person is an AA student and it comes to them easily, oh, I'm a failure because I'm a C or B student.
Right,
No,
right.
because you may excel in something that they don't excel in. We're all given gifts.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's, what is your gift?
Right,
Tap into
right.
what that gift is, that discovery of what you are able to do. Then you learn the skills that you need to do it well.
Right. And unfortunately, there's so many young adults in their 30s right now that had a lifetime of micromanaged parents, and that they were steering them in a direction that they felt would be what they should do. And so
the lawyer, the doctor, the
right. The star football player,
Yeah.
that's what you're going to be. And then when very few people make it to some of these levels, and they're not necessarily realistic, nor do they come with the accolades or the real self-worth that you would think with attaining these positions. So there's a number of young adults that are floundering right now because of their upbringing, where they were made to believe they were supposed to do something. And when that didn't pan out, they were kind of lost, and they need to, search within themselves of what are they interested in and what are their strengths and how can they contribute. And it's okay. It's okay to work in some position and earn minimum wage, or, if you get some joy out of it.
Right.
And if you can survive, and they could be some amazing blessings without having to reach some really high unattainable situation.
I've got 3 points to that. One, anytime you walk into a business, if it's dirty and tardy, immediately the business is tarnished. So the janitor has set the stage for you.
Yes.
Right. Number two, the education you have, if it's not in communication of your authenticity, right? It doesn't matter who or what it is you're studying. We hear this over and over again. If people can't buy you, they're not going to buy from you. right? Because you are always, not going to use the word selling yourself, but you are yourself. And if they really like you, they will find a way to work with you in some way or other. The movie King Richard, I don't know if you've seen it, but about the tennis sisters.
Okay. No, I haven't seen that movie.
I think you would enjoy it. The reason is that here is a father from Crompton who knew that his kids were going to have a good education and that 2 of the girls were going to be tennis pros. And he had gumption. He had guts. And he would walk into places that was just for the elite. Right. And when he actually did get a coach there and the kids were doing juniors and they were winning, he would watch how other parents were treating their children, whacking them. Or you failure, you this, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you win? And the poor children totally defeated. And this, again, elitism, oh, we'll take it from here. And then watching, as somebody who reached stardom suddenly become a drug addict because they were never prepared along the way. And he literally took his kids out of the juniors and said they will go into the seniors when they're ready. All they're going to do now is practice and learn. And he made sure they had an education. He made sure they knew how to handle themselves, how to actually do interviews as well as play well, so that when they got out there and became as famous as they had, they were well-rounded. There was somebody who had insight in the goal, but not at the expense of. And that, I think, was the reason the movie is stuck with me. A great acting by Will Smith, despite the slap at the Oscars. Great storyline, but it was also how putting things into priority. And if you're looking at having a book, being the best next J.K. Rowling and being a millionaire, forget it. Forget it. It's
and actually, most authors, myself included, realize that there's absolutely no money in writing the books unless you are one of the few that make it that big. But that wasn't my goal, and that's not the goal of many people. But how people react, I will watch that movie because it sounds,
you will enjoy it. You will.
It sounds very interesting. It reminds me of a situation when I was at a baseball game watching some high school kids play baseball, and this one baseball player ended up hitting what is, I think, called a grand slam, where the bases are loaded and they hit the ball and they bring everyone home, including themselves. And I was just so excited for this young man. And I saw his father go up to him and just criticize him by saying, well, you should have hit the ball this way. And, you should have done this. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this kid just hit a grand slam. Why couldn't that parent just say, that was fantastic? Deflate him. He deflated this young man. And I was shocked at witnessing that, because what an opportunity to praise someone. And even though the praise shouldn't come if you just get a grand slam, because that doesn't happen all the time. The praise should come as, boy, you really put a lot of effort into that one. Too bad the ball didn't go this way or that way, but boy, I could see how hard you tried and all of that. And that's so important. And so many of these parents that are trying to control a certain future outcome, they miss these beautiful moments and instead deflate them. I was just shocked when I saw that young man went from, everyone was so excited
elation
for him
to deflation.
To just immediately, because that parent was so critical.
And like for the child, will anything ever be enough for you?
Right.
So it can be very deflating and crippling, because at some point they stop trying.
Right. Well, our actions and how we interact with others matters so much. And sometimes it's even just a smile or a nod of reassurance. So like our conversations, just like this conversation, I think can impact so many people, because they can see that they're not alone, and that that you can talk about these things, but you can also make choices on how you want things to play out. You can make choices in how you respond to things. And we really can live beautiful, happy lives despite the drama and trauma that is around us.
When I was coaching, I would have people write out in one column everything that they felt was negative in their lives, right?
Yeah.
Then write in another column all that they felt was positive. And the positive would always be short and the negative would always be long. And then I would say to them, what do you want to see grow? I want to see that grow, positive side. And then what are you feeding? Because if you're going to keep feeding the negative is going to keep growing.
Right.
If you want the positive to grow, you've got to seed it well. You've got to water it. You've got to nurture it. And you've got to encourage it.
Oh, what a great lesson for, and a great activity for people. And maybe if there are people listening now, they could do that same activity. Make a list of the negatives and the positives and try to balance it out. And like you said, how do you change that situation? We have the power to change that within ourselves. And I found that writing is very, very healing. So that was a written exercise, but that also involved a lot of thinking and a lot of reflection. But I have found writing to be extremely therapeutic because it's can be done where you can really go through and you can edit and change and you can tweak things and it can be a work in progress.
Right.
So that can be very, very healing for people.
Very, very, like I'm a blogger, so I've gone back and read things and go, oh, this is interesting. Wonder who wrote it? Me.
Right.
And it's like, because I'm a channeler. So, it is, I do my own shows every week and sometimes I've just got one word and I press play and just let it go wherever it needs to go.
Sure.
It sounds to me that you would have been excellent in the Waldorf schools. Where where they actually take a kid and they watch the kid in their own discovery and nurture them down the paths that they're excelling in instead of dictating the paths that they're not excelling in.
Right. And Montessori is like that too. I did have, and there are pros and cons to all sorts of things with education, but early on in my children's lives in preschool, I did have them involved in a Montessori situation. And it was very cool to not only did I love the physical environment where things were built at a lower level for them to really feel comfortable and explore, but if they did find something they were interested in, that they could pursue that. And and at some point we are kind of harnessed and we are brought in. Speaking of movies, I recently was on a wonderful vacation, and
isn't the Caribbean a vacation in itself?
It is. It's a vacation in itself. But I had a book signing in Miami, and then we took a wonderful jaunt to Mexico, and I got to swim with the dolphins.
Oh
and
my God!
I actually swam with 4 sharks, which I was very scared, but it was a wonderful experience.
Yes.
But yes, so really it does sound weird to leave paradise for another paradise, but on the way back from this trip, I was able to watch some movies on the airplane ride. And one of them was called The Alpinist. And that was a fantastic movie about a young man who was very much into rock climbing and broke all sorts of records, rock climbing, even though he could care less about any records or being filmed or anything like that. He really just did it from the pure joy of climbing and being in nature. And, I don't even focus on the sad ending in a way that, but he died doing what he loved. But I remember in the movie hearing his mother say that, he was great in kindergarten when he got to just do whatever he wanted to do and play and be outdoors and be active. But the minute he had to be constrained into a classroom where you have to do this, like math is only from 9 to 9:30 and history is only from 2 to 2:30, those kinds of constraints not everyone can respond well to those.
No, I definitely couldn't.
Yes, right. And I could, but I think in my own mind, I still pursued a lot of the things that I really enjoyed. And one thing that was very positive that my parents instilled in me was a love of nature, and that continues to this day. And it is never a dull moment where I live. In fact, yesterday I caught my 18th boa constrictor snake.
Oh my
And
God.
I know, and I would never have been anyone who would have be around snakes.
What do you mean you caught it? You actually picked it up?
I caught it. Oh yeah, I picked it up, not by my hand. I have snake tongs, because even though they're not venomous, they will bite.
Yes.
They will constrict. Yes. But I have learned, I live on many acres in the rainforest, and even though boa constrictor snakes are not native to this area, they are prolific. They don't even need another snake to make baby snakes. So we have them around us. But it's never a dull moment. It's always exciting. We just can't believe every day. We never know what we're going to expect, because there's always some new animal or plant or situation. I never saw a triple rainbow before I came here. I didn't even know there were triple rainbows. I've heard of double rainbows, but I've seen a triple rainbow, and that's just fascinating. So anyway, like I said, my parents instilled the love of nature. I know I instilled that in my own children. And I think nature and just the beauty of it all can be very grounding.
Oh, it's so healing. It really is.
Very
centering.
Very healing. But we are put in these kind of constraints that don't allow us to flourish.
No.
And some of it, is just how society is. They put us in boxes in many ways. But
I think that's one of the huge problems with society today. I have another genre called Raising Our Gifted Children, but it has a byproduct of that, which is our Forgotten Children series, which I'm hoping by the end of the year will be a contributing book in there. And it's I think that a great deal of our disconnect as adults comes from childhood. And our children are meant to explore, they're meant to discover, they're meant to always be in wonderment. And the moment you start regimenting and dictating and conforming, you're killing the creativity inside of them. And I think that the overall educational system needs to change. And especially is that our children have an ability right now, especially with computers and everything else, to I literally use different parts of the brain than we did. So the old arcade way of teaching them is they're leaving us behind. They're going to be teaching us at this rate.
Right. But it's different eras are different. Like when I grew up, I mean, we spent so much time outdoors, and our parents did not organize any activities for us. If we wanted to do a kickball game, we organized it ourselves with the neighborhood kids. We would explore ravines. We would, now granted, it was a different time. I would even get on my bike and ride two different towns down. We didn't have cell phones, so our parents would never know where we were.
No, the tom-toms were other parents. Oh, so-and-so, your kid's at my house.
Right. So it was a different world, and we lived close to one another, and so we always just go out and play.
It was the village that raised the children,
right? Just go out and play. But then in my children's generation, even though we lived in a neighborhood which was wonderful in many ways, so many people lived on these big estates with no neighbors around them. Or one of the things I always thought was so strange, I would look at a neighborhood in suburbia, and I would see that each house had their own play yard. They had their own swing set and slide. Well, kids don't want to play at a play yard by themselves. They want to be with other kids and play. But you would see house after house after house after house have these structures that only really got used if kids came over to your house. You wouldn't see your kids by themselves swinging on the swings, that type of thing. It would have been better to have like one community
Yeah. Big playground.
playground,
Yeah.
yeah, for kids. So, every generation has their own challenges, and how we teach them is evolving and changing. And but definitely it's so important to let young children explore and be amazed at the wonder in the world, and to come to their own kind of conclusions,
Yes.
not just be spoon fed everything.
Right. I have a 13-month-old grandson
Oh,
who gave me this cold, by the way.
oh, yep.
He's a little petri dish right now.
Yes,
So you
yes.
get one thing after the other. And I was just down there looking after him. And I noticed, I thought I'm going to introduce him to some music, as I play Nat King Cole or play some jazz or play some other stuff. And then I see the little body grooving.
Right,
And so,
yeah.
I bought him for his first birthday one of these bombs, they have wonderful tones to them. And then my daughter bought him this kind of electric keyboard, and he just shakes along with it and gets along with it.
Right,
And and I just love sitting there watching him in his own discovery.
right,
And you see these little eyes turning and a little smile because he's got a conversation going on in his head.
right, yeah.
And it's like they don't have to be entertained all the time.
No, and you don't have to force feed things. Like I
Right.
always, when raising my children, I always had a music room,
Mhm.
and I had a cello in there, even though I was not a cellist. I had a piano in there, even though we took lessons here and there, but it wasn't like an obsession. It wasn't
Right.
like, oh, I have to achieve a certain thing. I had instruments from all over the world that I would either pick up from travels or I'd pick up at the local thrift store. And really what the kids loved the most was just the pots and pans and the spoons.
Yes.
But I loved having a music room,
Right.
so that they could have a place just to kind of explore, and there were no rules, and
Yeah.
they could just do what they wanted, and it wasn't very structured. And so that's so important. So I'm sure you just loved looking at your grandchild, and knowing that they had the freedom to just kind of listen and
Yes.
react their own way.
And still love a cardboard box.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
anything comes from Amazon, he's in that box,
Right. The box is better than what's inside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest gift, I think, is our children. And it's different being a grandparent, because when you're a parent, you're immediately into parenting. What does the child need, this and that? As a grandparent, it kind of feels more step back. It's a different type of feeling. You don't sweat things so much. And it's a different type of relationship. And it's wonderful to see your children in a different light, to see your actual kids become a parent as well. But it's that we've got to remember we're custodians of our children.
Yeah.
We're here to help them, to guide them, to nurture them, to teach them boundaries, teach them respect, self-respect, respect of others, the do's and don'ts in life by common sense and by sheer decency, but to think for themselves, to feel for themselves, there was that wonderful movie Inside Out, all about the emotions, right?
Yeah.
I remember interviewing a few psychiatrists at that time, and I'd pre-interviewed someone. I said, watch this movie before we do the show. And when we did the show, I watched that movie. Every parent is going to watch that movie now. And
right.
I'm always saying that it's okay to go for the emotions. They're there for a reason. Just don't become emotional about the emotions, right? Because they're there to be spent. They're there to be savored, but they're not there to get stuck in.
Right. And I think having these conversations will help people get unstuck.
Yeah. Now you've got all of these wonderful books, the True Deceit of False Love, and you've got, are they all just kind of a episode 1, 2, and 3 of them, or how do they work?
Well, with the True Deceit, False Love series, and I didn't really start out thinking I would write a series or even one book. I wrote down terms when I was in my phase of trying to understand narcissistic personalities or to understand domestic violence or parental alienation. So I would listen to podcasts, I would read the literature. So I would write down terms basically to look up later. And then to see, how that related to my situation. And before I knew it, I had 100 terms and then 1,000 terms. And actually the first book in the series of True Deceit, False Love is 15,555 terms on those topics with family trauma. And it was very well received and highly endorsed, even by Dr. Sam Vaknin, who coined a lot of these terms and phrases. And he admired that I did not write definitions, because there's numerous definitions to these. And actually part of healing of any kind of trauma is doing some of the inner work or doing the research and then connecting the dots to your own experience.
Yeah.
So the first book in the series is a list of terms and phrases. The second book is acrostic poetry, which I have actually written my whole life. And acrostic poetry is where you write a word vertically. And I had so many terms and phrases to choose from. I chose 13 terms and phrases for each letter of the alphabet. And I wrote a poem with sometimes just single words, sometimes single sentences, and sometimes just a connection. So acrostic poetry to me is very healing, but it's also very informational. And because it was so healing, and I wrote it from, a dad's point of view, a mom's point of view, from a child's point of view, a grandparent's point of view, even from an abuser's point of view, or a victim as well. So it can affect a wide range of people. Anyone can basically pick up this acrostic poetry book and find some common thread. The third book was an acrostic poetry workbook of this True Deceit, False Love, and where people could create, if they found writing to be healing for them, they could create their own acrostic poems, and they could come up with their own words that are meaningful, even names of people if they need to work out something positive or negative. And then the fourth book is some free verse poetry, where there weren't any kind of rules. That was just writing down thoughts. And that was a lot of fun to do. And the fifth book, which I don't have a physical copy yet, because it does take, I actually think I'm getting it tomorrow in the mail from my publisher, but it's a word search puzzle book. And I take these terms and I do a word search puzzle with, so for example, if one of the terms is brainwashing, I write down a lot of different things having to do with brainwashing, terms and phrases that are related, and they have to find them in a word search puzzle. And I found, and I know that might sound kind of strange to have a word search puzzle book, but when I was going through the beginning of trying to understand what I was going through, I found doing jigsaw puzzles or crossword puzzles or word searches very calming. And I loved how words were used. And so I kind of carried that over to this book series. So that's kind of what the book series is about. You can pick and choose what might be interesting to you. The books are all on Amazon. They're on Barnes and Noble, as well as Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House, which is my publisher. But if money is tight for people and they still are interested in checking these out, this True Deceit, False Love series, they can even obtain an e-version for $3.99. So I'm someone who actually likes to have physical copies of books.
Yes, me too.
I'm old fashioned that way, but and I do have a number of e-versions of books, but I don't go to them as much as I do a physical copy.
Being comfortable in a chair, a cup of coffee, and the book. Yeah, exactly. There's nothing to beat it.
Right. So that's what that book is about.
And do you have the God one?
Yes, and God came to my garage sale, okay, which was endorsed by James Redfield, who is the best-selling author of the Celestine Prophecy series,
I love those.
as well as some other people that have some spiritual gifts. And I actually got the support of what's called the IONS community, which is the International Association for Near-Death Studies. Because in my research of wanting to get more knowledge about what I went through and what I experienced when time stood still, and I saw 100 dragonflies at one point circling me, but it was all done in slow motion.
Wow, love it.
And that was just one of many of my experiences that I had with things or situations or people at that garage sale. I also incorporated other people's experiences, and there's so many common threads to these. But this, this was my first writing endeavor, and it ended up winning the Best Books Award.
Wow.
In 2020. It got a 5-star review with Reader's Favorite. And like I said, it was prominently endorsed, which was just awesome. But I don't even need all of that. I'm glad in that it made it catch the eye of some people that might not normally read something spiritual like this. And I think with my book signings too, I'm still just getting out there. I don't do book signings with the True Deceit, False Love series, because that is more a very niche genre, people that really want to look into, domestic violence, narcissistic abuse, parental alienation. But a lot of people question our existence and whether there is a God. And so this book is really about an atheist and the atheist going through these challenging questions. And this is I'm not on social media or anything, but I do have a website where I keep it up to date with events that I'm involved in and that type of thing. You could read about me, you could read about the different books I've been involved in. But my website is called godcametomygarage-sale.com. And actually, I've done many other writing endeavors. I think I've been involved in 5 anthology books where I've co-authored a chapter, an essay, that type of thing, to contribute to some international best-selling books. And that has been a very interesting, way to meet other people, but also to find my own writing voice and contribute to some of these others. I have one more anthology book coming up that I'll contribute to called Passing the Pearls, where we honor our grandmothers and we honor our mothers. And I'm very excited about writing about that.
I'm glad there is a book on that.
Yeah, definitely. We need to honor these, it's called Passing the Pearls. And the collaborator is an amazing person in herself. Her name's Tammy Morrison. And she interviewed me on a podcast, and because she was interested in my book, and I turned around and just, loved the message that she had and was very honored to be part of this next writing endeavor that I'm involved in. So, yeah.
Well, when you find something that is so meaningful to you, that you love and that you can do so well, then, that is the path that's been chosen for you. You have to take it.
Yeah.
And, as I've been doing this now 10 years, and when I was first asked to do a podcast, I didn't know what that was.
Right.
And I did 13 months with another network, and then it was, I've got to have my own network.
Yeah.
So June is 9 years, and the people, like yourself, that I've interviewed along the way, it has given me such hope on humanity. There are so many good people and good organizations. There is so much wonderful things that are happening that have shifted the whole tide. And as I said, the reason why we're seeing so much discord in the world, because they know their time is coming to an end. On that, and its resistance is futile, because this wave of love and compassion, it's which we're seeing evident. News hasn't covered it yet, but we cover it.
Oh, definitely. Some news does. But the very malevolent people with these other agendas that are really against humanity,
Yes.
they will fight just like abusers will
Yes.
fight up until the end, until it's just there's no chance. They've been overtaken because of the love and honesty and goodness.
Exactly. And that,
Yeah.
you know, look, in every movie and every song and every book, we've always triumphed over evil, because
Yes.
that is the human way. That is the nature
Right.
way. We know what is right. And that is love of self, love of each other, being there as a community for each other. It isn't
Yes.
about dominance, dictatorship, narcissism, or anything, or power. It is about
No.
the empowerment of each other.
Right.
And when we step into that, we realize where the true enrichment and abundance lies in society. And the more we nurture and feed that, the more that's going to grow, the more we grow as a humanity.
And you know, it just is, it's a beautiful thing how you phrase that. And I love that you have your organization called Self-Discovery Media, because it is about self-discovery, and it is about the journey, and the positives do outweigh the negatives. And
Always.
it's just not always apparent, and we
No.
have to go through the process, but good will triumph.
And we're meant to go through the process. Nobody's meant to go through life without a certain amount of pain.
Yeah.
In order to
Yeah.
understand joy, gratitude, love, what the real gift of life is, we have to go through the struggles.
Yeah.
And those struggles can be as hard or as easy as we are willing to participate in that healing process.
Right.
And if you're going to deny it, it's funny because I have another artist on this week, John Shard, and he's written a song called The Petty Narcissist.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, you know, even a while ago, somebody writing a song about a narcissist, what are you talking about? You know,
Yeah.
now we're actually, you know, there's a song out on it for his own experience. And it's like, the more we recognize people out there that either have chosen or are ignoring their own disability in many ways.
Right, right.
You know, it's with the more they are in denial, you know, the more empowered we can be, because we realize that's their issue. We don't need to take it on.
No, no, no. It's not important. We can live in the light.
Yeah.
And you know, we people that are so disordered like that, you know, and they will never get a diagnosis because they point the fingers at everyone else.
There's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah,
it's
they don't
you.
Right. They don't do the inner work. And that alone should be a red flag for people. If they see someone that is trying to and striving to understand their role in things, or to just understand the bigger picture, they are more empathetic and looking at humanity, where the other people are into power and control and manipulating other people, and they will do it as long as they are allowed to do it.
And right up to the very end, they will never take accountability.
No,
because it's always what's happened to them, and their retaliation against people who they think have done them wrong. Right. And unfortunately, that is their onus, their journey. Stay well clear of it. If you've been a victim of that, it's time for you to stand up for yourself, whatever it takes to leave and empower yourself. And in doing so, you will empower others. But,
and realize too, sometimes closure is no closure. Sometimes you don't have closure, where normally a reasonable person would want to talk it out and say, you know, here are some points that we should work on, or that these are the reasons. And actually with some people, just stepping away, your silence speaks more than words.
Yes. So we had a little while ago, you know, because my ex and I are 21 years apart now, and we do family things together, right? Because it's my children's father, and they each have their own relationship with him. And we were celebrating my son's birthday, and he actually did turn around and say, I was a lousy husband. I never should have married. I'm not marriage material. And that was as close as an apology I was ever going to get. And it was like, well, okay, you know, you've realized that. But, you know, as I said to him, and we're all responsible for our own healing, and, you know, for our own discovery of self. And, he won't go any further than that, but that was already a huge step there. So.
Right. Although you have to wonder how sincere that statement was, and as to whether or not that was just to engage you or just to, you know, you just don't know. Right. Right. To do that in front of other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, while they try to keep the mask up. So
exactly.
it's hard to know, but you know, yeah, we all find our journey, and I believe that, you know, goodness and love and compassion and forgiveness and staying in the light is the way to go. And you know, if that eventually helps my children's light bulbs go on, then so be it. But if not, you know, I can at least feel good about who I am and how I've chosen to live my life.
And, you know, that has got to be something that either inspires them or they, you know, it's, again, we raise our children to spread their own wings. And all we can do is say, go with love, you know, go with the skills and the tools and the knowledge that we've imparted on you. But ultimately, it's your choice.
Yes.
And, you know, as it is our choice, and, you know, please, folks, place that love and value on yourself. Being vulnerable is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, because when you're in that vulnerability of self-love, you are always protected and you are always guided by beautiful light. And being vulnerable means that you are now beautifully sensitive to what is around you, which means you're more in tune to the gifts that life has to give you.
Oh, you said that so beautifully. They said that so beautifully. Yeah, you really get it. And I'm so honored to even, you know, be in your presence, because really I mean it though, because you really get it, and you are articulating that for others to hopefully bring self-awareness for them.
Well, my gift was to bring people like you forth, to show people how. And that's the thing. I'm that gatekeeper. You're stuck. You don't know where to go. You don't know who to do. Listen to a podcast. There's somebody here amongst my 3,000 shows that you're going to resonate with. And that's going to open those doors for you on your own journey of life. And that's all we can do. You can't force people to read. I can't force people to listen. All we can do is put it out there with good intent, with loving intent, and it will be there for when people are ready to receive, when the horse is thirsty enough.
Sounds good.
So your site again is godcametoMyGarageSale.com.
Yes. Yeah.
And of course, all the books are on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and also
Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House Publishing.
Which is another woman who is extraordinary. And again, came to things later in life. And please, folks, understand this. There is no age restriction in your own self-discovery or stepping into your own light. There is no age. You don't say, I'm too old. You are never too old.
Not at all.
Never. So go and look at all the books. All of these books sound absolutely fascinating. And I love the way, you know, you've taken everything, and it's not just inquisitive, but it's illuminating, but it's also seeding. Right. And they
all relate to one another. So really, sometimes the spiritual awakening comes from living through some of life's challenges.
Yes. And just look at them as challenges, folks. They're not out to get you. They're out to teach you. We have so much strength and courage and ability and heart and soul if we're willing to step into it. Do not be defeated by others. Step into your own beautiful light, because that's what you are here for.
What a beautiful message.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing your message today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, pure delight, pure delight. And please, folks, go and get those books. They make great gifts for other people. Remember, I talk about podcast parties and book parties. Read the book, discuss it amongst each other, share. That's how we learn. That's how we inspire each other. That's how we support each other. Conversation, let it out. It's not meant to be suppressed in. Release yourself into that state of love. So until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Find all of our shows on selfdiscoverymedia.com under podcasts or selfdiscoverymedia/shows. And for all our current shows, go to What's New. We are supported by you, the audience. You will see a nice big shiny blue button for one-time donations, or follow us on Patreon and you will be able to support us there. We enjoy bringing you such wisdom. And the next show will be up in just a moment.